Hello and welcome to Fierce. This program celebrates the diversity of LGBTIQ identities and perspectives. Fierce is produced in Bundjalung Country at 2NCR Lismore and can also be heard on podcast at fiercefm.podbean.com and in New Zealand on Fresh FM, as well as all over Australia through the Community Radio Network.
Fierce FM on Spotify and YouTube.
I want to honour the traditional owners of the lands where you are living. They took care of these lands for thousands and thousands of years and then shared this land with us at great cost to their own lives. I want to thank them for the care they have given and continue to give, to sit on the earth, listen and care for country. I also want to thank the fairies and crones who came before us in history to fight for our human right to love fiercely.
My God, it's you. You're here. Am I in your bedroom right now?
You are in my bedroom.
Listeners, I'm very scared right now because I'm talking to Mark Trevorrow, who is singing straight.
Don't be scared.
Mark, of course, you're one of the most endured and adored Oz acts. Since the early 80s, you've been on TV. You hosted Countdown back in the day.
It is all true, Your Honour.
Were you actually on the Tivoli circuit at one stage or something?
That's right. I opened for Nellie Melba at her farewell concert in 1931. Actually, no, that's not true. That was John Farnham.
Oh my gosh, what's it been like to be part of Australian history in that way?
When I was a little kid, that all we had was local TV. There was very few national shows. There were all these old vaudevillian entertainers in Melbourne, Tivoli entertainers, who were the pioneer performers in the first 10, 15 years of Australian television. Not only did they do sketches on all the variety shows, they also had to do the kids' shows in the afternoon. They worked them like slaves, doing their old variety vaudeville shtick, and boy, it must have really sunk in.
You, in your early 20s, created a character called Bob Downe, very famous all over the world.
I did.
But it's actually a character that you created when you were a kid.
Yes, I've been doing a version of Bob really since I was a little kid. He's my TV entertainer character. So I would lip sync records and do numbers on the coffee table until everybody just said, Mark, for Christ's sake, shut up, sit down, we just want to watch TV.
Were you really lip syncing or did you sing live back then? Because you've got a beautiful voice.
I used to lip sync when I was a kid. And then when we had the Globos, when we hosted Countdown and we had a couple of hit records, the act was all lip synced. We were lip syncing old records and old TV commercials and then our own sketches that we would record and lip sync. So it was about the early days of TV on all the pop shows. Local kids like Denise Drysdale and Molly Meldrum used to lip sync overseas hits, like Corny Collins in Hairspray. There was an afternoon pop show called Commotion with a K. And that's what they used to do. So with the Globos, the group that I had, was recreating that. It wasn't until I invented Bob that I actually started singing on stage.
What was it like doing Countdown?
It was really weird. I'd already established a bit of a friendship with Molly because I was a journalist on the Melbourne Herald Sun in the days when it was actually a halfway decent paper. I ended up at the age of 20 and 21 doing the daily pop column, and Molly liked my writing. Molly has always pranked people on the phone, so he used to prank me and he'd ring me and put on all these different voices and started inviting me and mates to go to Countdown tapings. So the Globos thing happened absolutely not connected with my friendship with Molly. So when the Globos turned up with a record that was going to be a hit, and there we were being pitched to Countdown by Mushroom Records, he was absolutely gobsmacked. He had no idea any of this was happening because I don't think I'd thought to tell him. We were just doing the Globos in our lounge room. It was a sort of an extension of what I'd done as a kid. I wasn't sort of going, hey, Molly, we've got a group. The two things were parallel. And you can imagine how welcoming and happy he was to see us with a hit record and hosting Countdown. Imagine being 20 and 21 and you've got a hit record and you're hosting Countdown. Say no more.
The Globos busting out all over with Tinderella de Luna, and Mark and Wendy will be back soon to host the show.
Mark, you were a rock journalist at one stage.
Of sorts, yeah.
No, you were very good.
Thank you. Can I have that Heaven t-shirt when Ziggy's finished with it?
Well, you'll have to ask Ziggy.
I'm sick of my Supernaut one.
And I'm sick of saying woof woof to Ziggy too. I mean, that's like Billy Miller. Listen, we've got to go.
How did that hit record happen?
I was in a local theatre company and there was this record that everybody loved there that the director Helmut Mikaitis had called Tintorella de Luna. It was the first Italian rock and roll hit. And we loved it. When we started the Globos, I thought we should record that. We should lip sync our own single. So I pitched it to my mates at Mushroom in promotions, in publicity, Michelle Higgins. They thought it was the craziest idea they'd ever seen and they went with it. And Michael Gudinski said yes, and it became a national hit. What can I say?
The Globos. You're at the same acting school.
It's called St Martin's Youth Arts Centre, and it was run by a very charismatic and talented artistic director called Helmut Mikaitis. So it became a really hip place to go because it wasn't just for kids 17 to 25. And people like Gina Riley were there. In fact, Gina was the one who told me to come to St Martin's.
And so Gina and you act together for a long time, Bob Downe and Coralie Hollow.
That's right. Coralie was invented before Bob. We invented Coralie in about 1980. Bob wasn't invented until 1984. Isn't that weird?
Was Bob gay? Was Coralie a fag hag?
Well, it was all suggested and not spelt out. So Coralie was in love with Bob and Bob knew he was gay but wasn't doing anything about it and was stringing her along. Does that sound familiar to some of my older gay friends?
Well, you're singing straight now. Were you ever straight or were you bi at one stage?
No. Gay, 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 gay. Right from the start. No, I knew when I was a little kid.
I had an amazing dream last night. I dreamt that I came out here and fell in love with someone sitting in the front row of my studio audience. Isn't that ridiculous? Hi. Yeah, you. The one shitting yourself.
Do you wanna dance?
Hold my hand.
Tell me I'm your loving man, oh baby.
Do you wanna dance? Dance.
We could dance under the moonlight,
Hug and kiss all through the night.
oh baby.
Tell me, do you wanna
Dance with me, baby. Oh, do
you wanna dance?
you wanna dance? Do you wanna dance with my baby?
I might not be Barry White, but come on, baby. Come on. It won't hurt a bit, baby. Come on. Come on. What? Oh my God, it's Coralie Hollow!
Do you wanna dance? Hello! Under the moonlight, get your hands off my guy. Hug and kiss all through the night. Oh baby, 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 baby. Do you wanna dance with me,
I
baby?
was just filling in till you got here.
Just as well.
I was.
Do you wanna dance? Do you wanna dance? Do you
Want to dance with me, baby?
You've got to dance with me, baby.
Okay, come on, crunchy. That's right, baby.
Sexy.
Getting the semi on.
Me too.
What? Coralie Hollow!
Hi kids, I'm Mark Trevorrow and you're on Fierce FM. Fierce! Can you hear the birdies singing? They're fierce too. I've been performing as myself as well over the last 20 years. I've done a lot of radio presenting as myself on ABC Radio. I hosted a TV show on the ABC called The Way We Were as myself. I first started working as myself in Good News Week in the late 90s when it was on the ABC, and I wanted to do Bob, but they said, no, we don't want you in character, we want you as yourself. And I was really nervous to do it. So thanks to Ted Robertson and Good News Week, it's the only reason why I struck out and started performing and presenting and singing as myself. And so I made an album for the ABC in 2003, singing as myself, doing jazz and pop standards. And that's what I've been doing again over the last few years at a beautiful little cabaret in Sydney called Claire's Kitchen, a really fun place to work. And it's been a great place to work up my Mark show. And so this is the show that I'm bringing to Brunswick Picture House. And that's why I've called it Singing Straight, because it's me singing songs that I wouldn't really let Bob anywhere near. So it's me singing nicely, but still being funny and telling great stories about, like, for example, the time I worked with Christopher Pine. That's one of the stories that I tell in the show. Most of the seats inside are gone, but you can also buy seats to the garden and sit outside and hear the show under the stars on a screen. And of course, what I've realised I should do is leave the stage and go out and sing a couple of numbers in the garden. But then if I go outside, I won't be on the screen, which means that they won't know what's going on inside either. It's doing my head in. I don't know what to do.
You could go viral because everyone on their phones, they'd all do this.
By the time they worked out where it was showing, I'd be finished the number and be back in the hall anyway.
Let me ask you, Streisand or Minelli?
I do love them both. If push came to shove, it would have to be Minelli. A friend of mine always had a joke in New York about whether you were into Barbara or Judy. If you're into Judy, you were into Judaism. And if you love Barbara, you were a Streisandologist. And if you loved Ethel Merman, you were a practicing Merman. Of course, I'm mainly a Stephen Sondheim fan, which makes you a Sondheimite. But I love Liza, and I got to meet her once in New York. My mate Alan Cumming, who's going to be directing the Adelaide Cabaret Festival, which I'm going to be part of as Bob next year, which I'm thrilled. Alan was doing a one-man version of Macbeth. I can say the name because we're not in a theatre. We were backstage after the show, and Liza appeared in the doorway being carried by two burly theatre techs because she can't walk anymore, so they carried her up the stairs. And there she was. I never got a chance to actually talk to her directly because there were other people in the room. And at the end of the night, Alan finally formally introduced me to Liza, and she took my hand and she said, "I loved everything you said." That's what she said to me.
Had you said much?
I'd said a lot. I think you've noticed. I had said a lot. What she loved hearing, an older, gay Australian, not a yob. I probably really reminded her of Peter Allen, who she loved.
Did you
very
meet
dearly.
Peter yourself?
I never got to meet Peter. No, I didn't. But I saw him perform. He's a huge influence on Bob. In fact, Liza, her 1981 concert tour that she did, I saw it twice. I took Gina Riley one night and Jane from the Globos another night at the Palais in Melbourne, and Peter Allen the same year in Cabaret at the Hilton. That was when Liza and Peter reconnected, their friendship. They were the two greatest concert performances I've ever seen, and a gigantic influence on what I do on stage and how I perform on stage.
I was at the Sydney Opera House watching Alan Cumming doing his show where he was singing straight pretty much. Yeah. And you were there.
Yeah. I've known Alan for about 30 years because he was in Edinburgh when I was first in Edinburgh. At the Fringe, he was in a double act called Victor and Barry. See, I've known Alan since he was straight. And he married a really close friend of mine who'd actually been in the Globos, fabulous Australian performer who lives in London called Lisa Kelly. Her best friend married Alan. And then over the years, we've reconnected when Alan's been out here on tour, I guess. And then I performed at Club Cumming in New York, and that was absolutely incredible. I know. It's a small world. The cabaret world is very small.
Do you get anxious meeting these people for the first time? Were you scared to meet Liza, or were you ready and just open?
No, totally thrilled. You see, because I had this fantastic introduction to the media and show business by starting as a copy boy on the Melbourne Sun when I was 17. Finished HSC and then started in January at the Herald Sun as a copy boy. When you're a copy boy, you're loading up those filing cabinets and putting people's bets on and getting them out of the pub. The chief of staff would have known that I was a bit of a show queen. So he'd go, "Oh, I've got tickets to, I don't know, Rita Coolidge. I've got tickets to Devo. I've got tickets to, who's this? It says Liza Minnelli." And I'm like, "Yes!" Like that. And so what happened was I was going to all these things as a member of the media. And when I started doing the pop column, I was interviewing all these big stars like Bette Midler and Roy Orbison and Tina Turner. And that's when I was terrified, absolutely shitting myself. So I did the column for about 18 months every day. And after you've done a few of those, you stop being scared, start having a more sort of professional approach to it. And then I became a performer. And then I became a well-known performer. Like, for example, I remember being in a theatre foyer. Somebody introduced me to Helen Reddy, a mutual friend. And Helen Reddy took my hand and went, "Oh, I know who you are," she said. And I was like, Helen Reddy knows who I am? So it becomes exciting. You're like a professional meeting another professional. You're like a performer. All actors and performers love meeting each other.
The reception, because we had a storm. So I'm up here in the orchard now, Mark.
Oh,
so I hope
lovely.
you're enjoying the view.
Yeah.
You were just talking about all these amazing people you got to interview as a young tyke.
Yeah.
What about being gay in those times?
It wasn't cool at all. I was told in no uncertain terms, it was made very clear to me when I was a young journalist at the Herald Sun, 77 to 81, I was there, and it was don't ask, don't tell. That was the best you could hope for. So it just was something that you just knew that you had to keep private to yourself. So that was the tail end of that dreary era.
Graham Kennedy, so many of those people, they were on TV right from the very beginning, were gay.
Yeah.
And they were all living it that way.
That's
What's
right.
it like for you seeing the TV presenters of today?
Isn't it great? Like, there's so many out gay TV presenters, lesbian and gay, and I'd love to see some trans presenters, which I'm sure will happen any minute. It's an amazing thing. It's a beautiful thing to see, because when I was first doing television, it was still a bit creepy and a bit weird. In a way, Bob was my way of throwing up a suit of armor by doing that high camp character. It was sort of like my way of getting away with it in a weird sort of way, even though he was very closetty. Like, that was kind of the joke, really. We all knew, you know what I mean? As everybody's come out much more comfortably, I've been more and more out, both as myself and as Bob, for over the last few decades. It's a great time to be gay and lesbian, especially if you're young, because the opportunities are so enormous now. There's so many gay reporters and gay presenters on TV and radio, in the news. It's great to see it. I love it. I mean, Nate, the weatherman on ABC, for heaven's sake, we're all in love with him.
I'll have to check him out. I haven't seen him.
Oh, what? Nate, the weatherman on ABC 24. Oh, God.
Okay, I'll have a look. I'll Google him. You are now married.
I am.
You would have had so much sex, so much variety, being the star that you were.
Oh, I beg your
Traveling
pardon.
the world.
No, are you kidding? Nobody wanted to root Bob Downe. Are you joking? That's hilarious. As soon as they find out you're Bob Downe, they run a mile. It's like being a drag queen. All my drag queen friends can't get laid either. I'm just getting our wedding photo for you to show you.
Oh, beautiful.
This is us. There we are. That's us being married at San Francisco City Hall.
Oh, wow. What a stairway.
A stairway to heaven. In February 2017.
Oh, joyous.
Yeah, it was. It was incredible.
What song played at your wedding that you danced to?
I don't think we had music. I think everybody was talking too much. We had friends who lived around the corner from City Hall gave us a reception. So I think we were all talking too much to notice any music. But then on our honeymoon, we fell in love with an ABBA track, which none of us had heard, a song called If It Wasn't For the Night. That is our wedding song. Oh, and the night that we got together, we'd known each other for a long time. And then we got together when both of us were free on December the 1st, 2013, which was World AIDS Day. And Trevor Ashley was doing a show queen. And Kath Alcorn, this fabulous singer, was singing Say You Love Me by Fleetwood Mac. That's our song. Really. That's
You would have definitely been around the block, traveling the world and meeting all types of people.
And rooting everybody, as you said, so delightful.
Oh, maybe not that much sex, being a drag queen, I don't know. You were lip syncing from the 80s, like the drag queens. Were there any drag queens back in the 80s when you were doing the globos?
That's when I became friends with all the queens at the Albury, including Cindy Pastel. And Cindy is the person Priscilla's based on. So we were all friends back then. Yeah, all the drag queens loved the globos and we loved the drag queens. And then Bob is really a male drag queen. Yeah. So they're my number one influence.
Mark, I understand now, because I was backstage at Tropical Fruits last time we had it. After the cabaret, it was held up for 2 hours because the floor collapsed. And you were very patient. I was watching you, seeing how you were coping, you and Cindy Pastel. Yeah. And after the show, we all went out to party. I came back about 2 hours later and you and Cindy are still sitting on plastic chairs, just catching up backstage.
Oh, we had such a laugh that night. It was one of the funniest nights ever. We only just got on in time to finish our number in the cabaret tent before we had to go and change to do the 12 o'clock number with Morty and everybody. It was the most dramatic and fabulous night. God, it was wonderful.
So you like hanging out backstage with your friends rather than going out and meeting people?
Totally, always. The dressing room is where the action is.
And
Definitely.
Albury Hotel back in the
I used to be Bob with the Showbags. I used to lip sync boys' songs with the Showbags being my backup chicks. Used to do lip sync duets with Cindy Pastel in the bar at the Albury. And then I DJ'd at the Albury too, because I used to fill in for Bill Morley when he wasn't well. Darlin' Bill Morley was a great retro DJ, and I had a great collection of records from my days as a pop columnist. And so I used to fill in for Bill, and I used to love that. Used to love DJing and do the show at the same time. Put on a tape for 20 minutes, run downstairs, make up, come back up, do the show. Put the tape on from behind the desk. My God, this is all the 80s. Brilliant.
Oh my gosh, you're going to write a book sometime?
Yep, you bet I am.
You bet you are.
And you're going to come see me at Brunswick.
I'm going to be screaming, watching the big screen, telling you to come out here. We'll make you go viral. Come out.
Yeah, make you go viral. So I should tell you about the show, shouldn't I?
Yes.
I call it Singing Straight because I get to sing the songs that I wouldn't let Bob sing. Whenever Bob does a number, it's all about getting the laughs. Whereas when you sing as yourself, you can go to serious places and dark places and emotional places and songs, genuinely songs about love. And so I do a lot of jazz standards and pop standards, anything from Lennon McCartney to Noel Coward, Stephen Sondheim, a few theatre songs. And so it's a very different type of singing. But in between the songs, I tell funny stories about the time I met Christopher Pine, for example. Don't be scared to come and see me because you will get laughs, because there's a little bit of Bob in me and there's a lot of me in Bob, is all I can say.
Definitely.
And I've got a great piano player, a seriously great pianist called Bev Kennedy, and a wonderful guitarist called Tom Lindner. And Bev has done 30 musicals as music director and played in pit bands of many, many musicals. She's an incredible player. So you're in for a really great evening of music and funny stories.
Now, you were in the very last Kath and Kim thing.
I'm in all of the Kath and Kims. I'm in every series. I'm in the movie and I'm in the telly movie.
But they've finished, haven't they? That was their last one.
That's it. No more Kath and Kim. Forget it.
How can you do that? Like, are you
because you know, you just, you know, I don't know. The girls they're just over it. Here's Cindy Pastel. There's Cindy Pastel. She's on the toilet. That's my 52nd birthday portrait of Cindy Pastel. This is the last Globos lineup in 1986. Jane Markey and then me. That's my own hair. That's Tim Conigrave, who wrote Holding the Man.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's Tim. And there's Wendy. And there's Nell Schofield and Tracy Callender. So that's the 1986 lineup. Tim was wonderful in the Globos. You go to YouTube, you can see him. I put up numbers from this show. Isn't that lovely? Don't we look authentic? What was I telling you about? Oh, Kath and Kim. Yeah, no, they don't want to do it anymore because, you know, they've done it.
But you won't do that to Bob, will you? You'll keep Bob going.
Oh, God, no. Bob's going to keep going till I drop, because the difference between me and Bob and Kath and Kim is that Kath and Kim made so much money for its creators, Gina and Jane, that they don't need to work. Oh. How lucky are they?
You're doing all right for yourself. You've married. Come on.
I've married. I'm making a living and I'm on JobKeeper. What can I say?
The Globos, 2 years with them, and then you went solo, and you've been solo ever since, and now you're married. So what can you tell us about love and working together as a team?
It's wonderful to do this later in life when you've sort of sowed your wild oats, stopped searching for things that you thought you wanted, but as it turns out, you didn't. And then you get together and you get a schnauzer, you have your own little children. Alfie, Alf. He's just
Alfie.
Dead. He's dead to the world. Alfie, hello. Alfie.
How old's Alfie?
9 months.
Oh my God.
9 months old. And so coming to marriage really later in life is such a nice thing, because you've learned a lot of life lessons. And then, of course, what marriage teaches you is that there's a lot more to learn. You never stop learning, finding out about each other.
Well, I want to go out with a song of you singing straight.
Oh, yeah. This is me and Bev Kennedy and Tom Lindner. This is the team that's going to entertain you at Brunswick Picture House. And we're singing the Jacques Brel classic, If You Go Away, Ne Me Quitte Pas.
Thank you, Mark.
Bye.
Bye.
If you go away on this summer day, then you might as well take the sun away. All the birds that flew in the summer sky, when our love was new and our hearts were high, when the day was young and the nights were long, and the moon stood still for the nightbird song. If you go away, if you go away, ne me quitte pas. But If you stay, I'll make you a day like no day has been or will be again. We'll sail on the sun, we'll ride on the rain, we'll talk to the trees and worship the wind. And if you go, I'll understand. Leave me just enough love to hold in my hand. If you go away, if you go away. If you go away, as I know you will, you must tell the world to stop turning till you return again. If you ever do, for what good is love without loving you? Can I tell you now as you turn to go, I'll be dying slowly till the next hello. If you go away, if you go away, but if you stay, I'll make your night like no night has been or will be again. I'll sail on your smile, I'll ride on your touch, I'll talk to your eyes that I love so much. And if you go, I won't cry, for the good is gone from the word goodbye. Namikitapa. If you go away, if you go away. If you go away, as I know you must, there'll be nothing left in this world to trust. Just an empty room full of empty space, like the empty look I see on your face. I'd have been the shadow of your dog if it might have kept me by your side. If you go away, if you go away, Namikitapa, Namikitapa.
Thank you for listening to Fierce. This program celebrates the diversity of LGBTIQ identities and perspectives. Fierce is produced in Bundjalung Country at 2NCR Lismore and can also be heard on podcast at fiercefm.podbean.com and in New Zealand on Fresh FM, as well as all over Australia through the Community Radio Network. Fierce FM on Spotify.